Good early afternoon. Today, we're going to be taking a look at how new Paladin works, actually. It's going to be like, I'm thinking like most half an hour stream or so. We'll get back to MSQ stuff and things like that later in the day, but right now I just want to check Paladin. There's a bunch of changes, but a lot of things that are the same. Let me just find my list, which I have on a different monitor. Let's switch to Paladin. So, I have read through the patch notes, I have checked it, I have looked into things, I've prepared a bunch of stuff already, but there is some things that are up in the air that people are not sure about. Because it's not entirely clear from tooltips. So I'll go over all of the things that I have jotted down myself. First of all, everything is as it should be. All of the bars are the same. There are a few things, like a few actions that have been changed significantly compared to the rest of them, but most of it is actually all the same. Like, a lot of the things you could put in the exact same spot. I would recommend just, if you've followed my hotbars from like previous guides and stuff like that, this still works. This still works perfectly fine. But we have one new button, because at level 52 we have a returning player from Stormblood called Bulwark. Basically, because Sheltron and Holy Sheltron has been made so that they just flat out reduce damage instead of ensuring a block, that means that there isn't really anything the Paladin can do to ensure a block. Whether that was even necessary is up for debate, but now you have Bulwark, which does basically that. When you block, you reduce damage by about 20%. I believe it's pretty consistently 20%, unless your shield is heavily outperformed by the content. Like if the item level of your shield is bad, then your blocks are going to be weaker. But for the most part, Bulwark is going to be a 20% damage reduction effect, which means that Bulwark is basically a 10-second rampart instead of a 20-second rampart. But it is an extra rampart, and that's the important part. How that plays into exactly your cooldown management and stuff, hard to say. We'll look further into that when I make the guides. But what this does mean for the Paladin is that now the Paladin actually has the most buttons of all jobs in the game. I believe, I think Samurai had the most. Well, it had equally as many as Paladin. But now Paladin has so many that I have to get rid of one of my utility buttons just to make space for Bulwark. Which is probably better served to be placed here on the 7 row. I think this might be a good exchange. Shield Bash in a little bit is a little bit of an awkward one, but that is one of the most rare buttons in your arsenal that you will ever use, so it's probably fine that it is in an awkward spot. Now, then we move on to the things that I do know. Goring Blade, we finally figured out what's going to happen with it. Goring Blade is now a cooldown. Goring Blade is, some might say, blasting zone, but a weapon skill, so it's closer to Sonic Break, except Goring Blade just does all of the damage up front. For good or bad, it does all of the damage up front. And it has the classic, this weapon skill does not share a recast time with any other actions. What I can say, and I had to test this because incidentally my gear has no skill speed on it right now. I have a skill speed item with me. Its cooldown is affected by skill speed. Whether that changes anything for you, I don't know. You will want to use Goring Blade once every fight or flight. We'll get back to you. Every fight or flight. You will want to do that regardless. So if Goring Blade becomes ready a little bit sooner, that changes nothing for you. Nothing at all. So that basically makes skill speed sort of insignificant. There are a few things where skill speed makes the rotation a little nicer, you know. It's not as important that you're perfectly late weave, fight or flight and things like that when you have a faster skill speed, but overall, we're going to be expecting that there's going to be 8 GCDs in the fight or flight window because of all the spells that are going to be in it. And having skill speed is not going to change that, because like 2 of the actions you're going to be using in fight or flight are going to be weapon skills now. The vast majority of fight or flight is going to be spells, and I'll get to that. So just to go over some things that we know are unchanged, Expiation and Circle of Scorn are mostly unchanged. I believe Expiation does slightly more damage and then has slightly less AoE damage to compensate, so it does mostly the same on AoE. Intervene is completely unchanged and Circle of Scorn is completely unchanged. You're going to be using these 3 actions exactly the same way you always did. Nothing there is changed. Now, Fight or Flight, on the other hand, sacrificed 5 seconds of its duration. 5 seconds of its duration to now also increase your magic damage, which means that Fight or Flight now increases the damage of Confiteor, which is pretty massive. Let's see, 900 potency plus 25%, so that's 1125. That is nearly as much as double down, but now remember that while Gunbreaker doubles down in a single hit, Paladin can do it twice, because Blade of Valor also does 900 potency, and also is affected by Fight or Flight. So Paladin might have the highest potential burst of all the tanks now. Might. Because there's a lot of factors that plays into that. Now, there are a few things that I've jotted down that I'm uncertain about. Let's start with an easy one, and also an interesting one. So, Divine Veil has been changed. Now, it's very similar to Shake It Off. It creates a barrier around you and your party that absorbs damage equal to 10% of your maximum HP, and then it also heals everyone. Now, the reason why I say that it's a little bit different is because Shake It Off has a little bit more vague of a description. It says creates a barrier around self and all nearby party members that absorbs damage totaling 50% of maximum HP. So Divine Veil says your maximum HP, which means that the question is, if, for example, I summon my Chocobo companion. If I were to summon my Chocobo companion, who has about half the health of me, will my Chocobo companion's shield bar here be twice as long as mine because it's 10% of my HP, or is it going to be 10% of Sharishi's HP? Let's see. Well, would you look at that? So, why is that significant? Tanks tend to have significantly more health than DPS and healers. So, warriors Shake It Off shields everyone for 15% of whatever HP they have. So that means that Shirishi here should receive, you know, about 6k shield if I use Shake It Off. I can actually test that. Yeah, so you can see the bar is actually identical, because mine, or Sharishi's health, it's 15% of the individual's health, whereas Paladin's is actually 10% of the Paladin's health specifically, which matters, because that means that it's 10% for me, 20% for Shirishi, and it would be like somewhere between 15 and 20% for most other jobs in the game, which, well, if it's 15%, then it's Shake It Off. If it's 20%, then it's better than Shake It Off. In fact, the best way for Shake It Off to even compete with that is if Warrior, you know, starts to sacrifice Thrill of Battle, Vengeance, and Bloodwetting just to make that magic happen. So that actually makes Divine Veil, in my opinion, the better of the two. Hey, Jolie? Yeah, 2-minute burst club. Well, let's see how bad it is, or how good it is. The second question, which is important, is, first of all, thank you very much, Sharishi. Does Holy Spirit, Holy Circle, and Confiteor break your melee combo? That is very important for how you plan your bursts. So we start Fast Blade here, and then we do Holy Spirit, and our combo is not broken. So that is good. And then we also have a featuring Divine Might, which I haven't gotten to yet. We test again, we do a Holy Circle this time. Still not broken, that is not surprising. And then finally, we do Requiescat. I'm just going to do Requiescat. We don't really need to test the damage yet. So I do Fast Blade, Requiescat, Confiteor, not broken, Blade, not broken, Blade again, still not broken, and Blade again, still not broken. So this doesn't actually change much for your rotation. Because the way you're going to use these actions, you will typically lead with Royal Authority relatively early in your burst rotation anyway. So the fact that Confiteor does not break your combo doesn't matter that much, but the fact that Holy Spirit does not break your combo is extremely important, because the way that Paladin's burst is going to work now is that now that Fight or Flight's duration is 20 seconds, and, well, 75% of it is going to be spells that don't scale with skill speed, you're not going to fit more than 8 things in that window. That's simply not going to happen. Not once you start introducing the spells. When you're really low level, like in the around level 50s and such, you might be able to fit 9 if you're randomly equipped with a lot of skill speed. In any other situation, it's going to be 8, and that's just what it is. So the best we can do is figure out, so what 8 things is that going to be? In the burst, which is like the general burst, so when you're in the middle of a fight, you will be able to assume that you have this new Divine Might buff. And what is Divine Might? When you finish a 1-2-3 combo with Royal Authority, which is your only real 1-2-3 combo these days, RIP Goring Blade combo, you will get Divine Might, which makes your next Holy Spirit or Holy Circle stronger. Now, Holy Circle is actually not really worth using without Divine Might or Requiescat, because it does the same damage as Total Eclipse without it. If you need the healing from Holy Circle, it is generally probably better to just use Clemency to heal more, and then get through a 1-2 combo so you can double the potency on Holy Circle with Divine Might. Holy Spirit, on the other hand, is sort of worth using even without a Divine Might, because 350 potency is actually like 10% more than the average potency of your 1-2-3 combo. Of course, if you introduce that you can have 3 atonements on top of it, then it starts to look a little less enticing, but if you can't get that far in your combo, then that's a different story, right? So there is an argument for using Holy Spirit just anytime you want. In fact, Holy Spirit is strong enough that if for some reason you're not allowed to be in melee range with the boss, if you have the excess MP to do it, you can just stand there, just nuking away, like a little bit away. It's not that bad. Oh yeah, featuring the new magic indicators. So that leads us to what are the actions that we're going to be using. You want to make sure when you enter your burst, your fight or flight window, that leading up to it, so you're doing Fast Blade, Riot Blade, then you late weave fight or flight, and you don't do Royal Authority because you should already have Divine Might. So that means you're actually using Holy Spirit and then Royal Authority, because that means you have an extra Divine Might to use. Now that already means that we've used 2 of our slots, of the 8 slots. Then comes Goring Blade. Of course, Goring Blade has to be part of it because of how strong that is. It's your best physical attack. And Requiescat has to be weaved somewhere too. That leaves the entire Confiteor combo, which is 4 steps, and an extra Holy Spirit. Do we have anything else? I feel like I've forgotten something. Let's see. Royal Authority, Goring Blade, 2 Divine Might Holy Spirits, and then Confiteor and the Blade combo. Yeah, that's 8. So that is the combo. Now, in your opener, that's not happening, because you should not do the Royal Authority combo to get Divine Might and then circle back around. That takes too long. It's not worth the potency. The difference between just skipping and like doing whatever you have access to in your opener is the difference between the potency of Divine Might Holy Spirit and Atonement, which is 70 potency. It's simply better to just jump right into it as like this. Just giving an example. I haven't perfected this thing. I feel like I did something wrong there. That was the first try. See? Do we have anything else that I should cover before we just talk about openers and rotations? It doesn't seem like it, so I'll just give this another go. So let's see. Byron says, I've also been playing around with Paladin too. Yeah, I do think that this does feel nice. There's just some things that are missing and some new things, so it's difficult to say whether it's objectively just better. I'm not the best person to ask on that. I just want to demonstrate what it is and what it's not. Let's try the opener again. I feel like I'm forgetting something. I'm forgetting Goring Blade. It's Goring Blade. Why did I forget Goring Blade? I'm like, there's exactly one GCD that I'm forgetting here. I wonder what it is. And Goring Blade just sitting there like, am I a joke to you? Okay. I'm gonna get it right this time. It's gonna be Royal Authority, Holy Spirit, Goring Blade. And so, and then we do this combo, and then we do Atonement at the end. Right. 3rd time's the charm. And Goring Blade. And Atonement. And there it ran out. Like it runs out just as the next attack would have been available. So that actually means that whether you choose to properly late weave and everything is not that crucially important at the end of the day. You can probably get away with just weaving fight or flight whenever at some point in the rotation. I think I should have done this one step earlier. Yeah, I should. Here you can see, this time whoops, I forgot Goring Blade. Goring Blade will have to come at the end. This is going to be like me for the next long while. Doing the Paladin combo perfectly, except I forgot Goring Blade. Every single time. Yeah, one thing you can see that is still here in the Paladin rotation is that you won't actually have enough time to do all 3 atonements in every sequence. It will be better to delay it a little bit. Or rather not delay it, to skip one. Now because I delayed Goring Blade too much, this is going to be really, really awkward. And I messed it up. Let's take it from the top. So, overall, the big benefit for Paladin in this rework is that Requiescat and Fight or Flight being able to be used together means that your burst is concentrated in 20 seconds. Now, that's still more than 15 seconds, which is, you know, the time frame that most damage buffs last, but it's way better than, for instance, old fast Paladin's 18-second opener. That is already a massive improvement for Paladin's ability to burst. Whether that is an improvement for how the job feels for you is a completely different story. But it does mean that the Paladin works much better with the rest of the team without having to break its own back to try and make that magic happen. Pun intended. Good morning, Soul Sliver. I hope you're doing well. And Byron says, I skipped 1 atonement on the second go round. From what I can understand, sometimes you might find it difficult to fit even 2 atonements in the second go round. Well, depends on what you mean by second go round. Let me give it another shot and let's see if I can actually remember to do everything right this time. That was all the OGCDs. And then the atonement. And then we finish the atonements. So the very important part is that while atonement is a pretty good attack, the whole point of using it is actually to make sure that the rest of your rotation lines up. Like the entire Paladin rotation now rotates around, and it sort of did already, but now that both of your big cooldowns are combined, the entire rotation of the Paladin rotates around, making Fight or Flight come out on time. So here I did 2 of them, and we do 1, and then 2. And... oh, and I forget Goring Blade early again. Well, I'll get it. Let's see if I can circle around to the rotation, because I did get everything else right. So we can't. This is still salvageable. This is still salvageable. And do 1, and 2, and 3. Now you can see here, as I circle around, we do Royal Authority. And then we do 1 Atonement, and now it's already saying 5, so we have to do 1, and 2, and Fight or Flight. The important bit here is that you want to be using Fast Blade when the timer says 5 on Fight or Flight. Otherwise you're going to delay it, and you don't want that. So how many you can fit is also heavily affected by your skill speed. According to the information I could see that others had found, if your skill speed is 2.50, like exactly 0 skill speed, then when you do the rotation, so after the opener, your rotation will automatically settle into a system where you will not have space for 2 atonements after the second Royal Authority in your downtime. That you don't have space for that. So as Byron says, he says 3-2-3. I think what's going to happen there is that it's going to be like, if we start right after your Fight or Flight ends, then it's going to be 3 atonements, Royal Authority combo, 3 atonements, Royal Authority combo, and then 1 or 2 atonements depending on your skill speed. And the only reason why it works a little bit different in the opener is because in your opener, you're using one of the Royal Authorities to compensate for one of the Holy Spirits you're not having. That's sort of the summary there. Whether there's a better way to do it, I don't know. I can't imagine that there's anything we can do about that hanging atonement stack. I think there's an argument that some people have looked into whether it is worth using Holy Spirit, like as a regular part of your rotation. But I'm not entirely 100% sure on that. Also, Soul Silver says, with the combination of the ultralight tombstone cost reduction and your astronomy guide, I was able to get my main Dragoon to item level 620. Astronomy guide. Thanks a ton. I'm glad to hear that. Congratulations, Soul Sliver. I also invested in some new weapons for Paladin. I'm going to be spending some time with Paladin at least the next few days to make sure that I get all this right. I think I've covered everything significant. Let me just go over some miscellaneous stuff before we round off here and resume later for other stuff. Clemency, completely unchanged. Holy Spirit scales incredibly well with Requiescat, like it gets like 300 potency. One thing you should keep in mind is that, and you noticed this whenever I did the opener and the burst and all that, Divine Might, the buff from Royal Authority, is prioritized over Requiescat. That's a good thing, because you don't actually, once you have Confiteor and the blades, you don't actually want to use Requiescat on Holy Spirit. The benefit of Requiescat is a little bit different across the different actions. Let me just check something real quick. Fascinating. Requiescat has a hidden bonus, because it no longer states it. It has a hidden bonus of making Clemency instant. And the only reason why it's hidden is because it's a mistake, probably. It's probably a mistake. But aside from Clemency being weird like that, the spells get different benefits from Requiescat, namely that the Holy Spirit gets like nearly double damage from Requiescat. Holy Circle gets triple damage from Requiescat. Unfortunately, Holy Circle's base damage is terrible, so that's not that impressive. It's very impressive compared to Prominence, but it's not that impressive compared to Confiteor. And the reason you could argue the reason that Confiteor gets 500 potency from Requiescat and so does the 3 blades is because they're instant naturally. Like, they're all instant by default. Which means that instead of getting the ability to be instant cast, they instead get an extra, like, 200 potency on top. Now, I don't think there's any scenario where this matters. I don't think there is any scenario where this matters. However, you have to keep in mind that Requiescat makes Holy Circle and Holy Spirit instant, which means that if for some reason you will need to be running around an arena, a large arena away from melee range, hypothetically, if you were to have to run around far away from enemies where you can't use your weapon skills or anything, and you can't stop to cast, you have to really, like, you have to book it. You could use, like, if you can just get in for a fraction of a second and use Requiescat, you could run in and then you can use Holy Spirit 4 times without it being a problem. And then you would still be able to continue on to use Confiteor and the 3 blades. And it would still not be a problem. You wouldn't have to stop. Now, that is probably never useful. But it is something worth considering. Maybe there is a time where you would need it, and that's worth thinking about. One other thing that has changed is that... Whoops. Hey, Ralo. The 3 blades no longer restore MP, they cost MP. They cost 1000 MP instead of recovering it. So that means that every time you use Requiescat, you have to be ready to pay 4000 MP to do it. Every time you finish a Royal Authority combo, you need to be ready to pay 1000 MP for Holy Spirit or Holy Circle, similarly with Prominence. I believe Riot Blade gives 500? Oh, it gives 1000 now. Well, excellent. Oh, well, now, I guess it has always been given 1000 for a while, hasn't it? How about how about Atonement? That's still 400. Excellent. For some reason in my mind, I remembered it as Riot Blade giving only 500. How about Expiation? That's also 500. Well, that is 500. Maybe that was the one that I was remembering. So, how about Prominence? I'm guessing that's 500 then. No, that's also 1000. Okay, in that case, that is a little important. I have some notes on that I need to adjust. So every time you do a full 1, 2, 3 combo, you get the MP to use Holy Spirit or Holy Circle. But you're also expected to do that. Like, you have to do that. For the maximum potency, of course. Everything beyond that, if you do an Atonement combo, you get, an extra 1200 MP. Every time you use Expiation, you get an extra 500. And every 3 seconds, you get 200. Because the Royal Authority combo results in you having to use Holy Spirit, the MP from Riot Blade is pretty much non-existent. It just means that when you use Divine Might Holy Spirit, you get it for free, quote unquote, because you paid, you got the resources to pay for it previously. So that means that those 4000 for the Requiescat window, they have to come from elsewhere. They have to come from... And here, this might not surprise anyone. As you recover 200 MP every 3 seconds, you will have recovered exactly 4000 MP every minute from the passive recovery. And every time you do 3 atonements, you've gotten 1200 MP. Every time you do 2 expiations, you've gotten 1000 MP. So every 1 minute, expiation will give you an extra Holy Spirit to use, and every time you do 3 atonements, and you will usually do like 8 atonements, as Byron also observed, every minute. So that's 3,200 MP. So you could pay for extra Holy Spirits. Now the thing is, if you use an extra Holy Spirit beyond the minimum required, that will cost you atonement casts typically. So let's say you would want to use those extra MP you had. If you wanted to use 3 extra Holy Spirits every minute, that would cost you 3 atonements, which means you only get 2,000 from those, but then you're still getting 1,000 from expiation. So I guess that's the logic here. Every minute you have all the MP in the world to cast your Divine Might Holy Spirits, all the MP you need for Requiescat, and you generate enough MP for 3 extra Holy Spirits should you want to do that. Whether that's good or not is still a bit up in the air if you are in the opener and there are a significant amount of raid buffs that last beyond your fight or flight window. Then there might be reason to use Holy Spirit. Maybe. Now the important thing here being that Holy Spirit is weaker than Atonement, so why not just move on to Atonement? The general idea is that once you have done Atonement and run out of those, you can continue to use Holy Spirit instead of going Fast Blade, Riot Blade, which are your 2 weapon skills that are weaker than Holy Spirit. And just so we cover everything in this first impressions, Holy Circle is now a much bigger part of your AoE rotation, because it is actually a DPS gain to use it after every Prominence combo. They have 100 potency, 170 potency, and then 200 potency. And if you are not level 90, you will probably use Requiescat and at least 3 Holy Circles. And then a Confiteor if you're level 80. Otherwise you're going to be doing 4 Holy Circles there. At 300 potency, which is really nice. Like, it's not quite a Chaotic Cyclone 320 critical direct hit potency, but it's 300 potency, which is better than Decimate. So it's better than Inner Release in some capacity. And that must count for something. I think that is pretty much all of the things I had to cover. If there's something you guys watching you would like me to test, or something you have a question about with New Paladin that I might be able to answer, you're very welcome to ask them here. Then I will do that, and then I will probably round out the stream, as I didn't intend for this to be hours long. Look, there's another Paladin testing. I'll just move away so they can have their space. Oh yeah, there was another thing. They've added a separate icon for canceling your tank stance, and they've added that for all of the tanks. Just made the icon blue and added an arrow down, it seems. It's more clear on everything but Dark Knight, because the Dark Knight one was already blue. I don't know why. I guess if you make a macro that explicitly name drops Iron Will, then you might be able to make it so you can make a macro that that it will not cast the release version. Nope, they're the same button, so I don't know what the purpose of that is. I don't know. I really don't. At least they didn't add it as a separate button. And Byron mentioned Bulwark. Yeah, so as I said, I put Bulwark here. In terms of potency, I'm pretty sure Bulwark is about as strong as... Bulwark should be about as strong as Rampart. It just lasts 10 seconds. Carlos says, I thought Sheltron was 6 seconds. Sheltron is 4 seconds when you learn it at level 35. Then at level 74, it gets extended to 6 seconds. And then at level 82, it is upgraded to Holy Sheltron, which has a duration of 8 seconds. And actually also has Knight's Resolve, which is basically Sheltron again, but only on 4 seconds. And Antares says about the tank stance, I guess so new player knows that you can drop your tank stance. That is a good point. That is a good suggestion. That is actually a pretty good suggestion, because I have heard a lot of people get very confused about that effect ends upon reuse thing. So that does sound like a good reason, Antares. Also because when you use Iron Will here, then it then changes the tooltip to say cancels the effect of Iron Will, which is basically what Iron Will says that it does if you reuse it. Let me just test something. Well, we're going to need a level 90 mob for that. Let's see. Where can we find a level 90 mob that will hit me back? That isn't in a super spoilery zone. Let me just test this here. A random whiptail. Yep, 20%. Fascinating. I wonder if you guys noticed that? But while Bulwark was still active, the whiptail hit me, as in I didn't block its attack. That was because it was a critical hit, and apparently you cannot block critical hits. So that means, and this might be some old school shenanigans that we haven't had to deal with, at least since Stormblood. If the attack is a critical hit, you can't have also blocked it. It hit you at a weak spot. That weak spot cannot be situated on your shield, obviously. So, whatever the crit chance of the enemy is, if it has one, then that is the chance that your Bulwark will fail you. I think in the vast majority of cases that's not an issue. Do bosses critically strike with their auto attacks like regularly? I don't think they do. I think that's like not been a thing for a while. I think I heard about it being like removed as a thing because it was really unfair. So maybe it's just open world mobs. It might not even be a case in dungeons. But I still think it's interesting to note that Bulwark is like a half as strong Rampart that isn't perfectly consistent, because if the enemy crits, it doesn't work. And we no longer have the roll action awareness to make you immune to crits. So you can't just fix that on your end. But Bulwark is a cool ability. It used to be a little different, but it still had the same idea. It just made you block more. And I think everything else is as it is. I think one of the coolest changes is Divine Veil, because I think a lot of people expected that they would just make Divine Veil into a clone of Shake It Off. And while it is extremely similar to Shake It Off now, and I did mention this earlier, but even though Divine Veil is extremely similar to to Shake It Off, there is a key difference, and let me just showcase this again. So, Warriors Shake It Off says that it puts a shield of 15% of maximum HP on the targets, which means if I use it here, these bars are equally long, because I get a 15% of my health shield, Sharishi here gets 15% of her health shield. And nothing will change that. Also, they added a heal over time component to shake it off because it wasn't powerful enough. You basically have a Medica 2 on a stick as a warrior now. Actually, Medica 2 combined with Soccer. Balanced. Meanwhile, Divine Veil says, creates a barrier around self and all party members near you that absorbs damage equivalent to 10% of your maximum HP, which is a really important distinction, because the warrior one just says it just says maximum HP, implying the person's maximum HP. The paladin one specifically explicitly states that it is your maximum HP, and then it also heals to 400 potency. And let me just demonstrate. You can see here Shirishi that has half my health gets a twice as long shield, because relatively speaking 10% of my health is closer to like 20% of Shirishi's health. So I think that is possibly one of the coolest changes they made defensively to Paladin. Surprisingly, not Bulwark, but reworking Divine Veil. That is really cool. Yeah. I don't really have anything else to note. I will probably do some of the new content in the game on my own, and then I will be back in some hours with MSQ stream, where we do the new MSQ stuff. And then I will probably work on some Paladin guides. For those interested, the first 50 levels are nearly completely unchanged from Shadowbringers. Still. Anyway. I don't have anything else on the menu, so thank you all for tuning in for this ad hoc surprise stream. I hope you will find it helpful for maybe getting your bearings if you're also trying to figure out how on earth Paladin works now. And in the meantime, I hope you enjoy 6.30 and hopefully new Paladin. Thank you all so much for watching, and good afternoon, or evening or morning, depending on where you are in the world. See you soon.